This is Democracy Now!, democracynow.org. I'm Amy Goodman with Juan Gonzalez. In Minnesota, the Hennepin County Medical Examiner has ruled the death of the 37-year-old VA ICU nurse, Alex Pretti, a homicide due to multiple gunshot wounds. He was fatally shot by 2 Border Patrol agents January 24th. His killing comes just weeks after ICE agents fatally shot Renee Good, another 37-year-old. She was a 37-year-old mother of 3 in Minneapolis. On Friday, the Justice Department has announced it's conducting a civil rights investigation into Pretti's death. However, the administration has refused to identify the agents involved. But over the weekend, ProPublica identified the men as Border Patrol agent Jesus Ochoa and Customs and Border Protection Officer Raymundo Gutierrez, both from Texas. ProPublica reporter David McSwane joins us now from Washington, D.C. David, thanks so much for being with us. Can you start off by talking about the decision of ProPublica to name the names? Now, of course, we do know the name of the agent who shot Renee Good, but we haven't known these names, the 2 CBP agents.
Right. Well, this is a matter of intense public interest. We've all seen the videos. More than a week had passed, and in the interim, we were asking questions of, who are these officers involved in this shooting that, from various angles. I think we all have questions about who shot and how it escalated so quickly. And, we came to the decision when we were able to identify these officers that this is in the public interest. This country has a tradition and norm of being able to identify law enforcement officers, both for their safety and the safety of the public. And, the shielding of agents, both in terms of the administration's secrecy around them and their ability to wear masks as, we see these violent encounters in the streets. The first line of accountability would be able, for families to, find any sort of accountability would be to identify who those officers are. And, for potential prosecutors and so forth, same thing. And we found out from state leaders in Minnesota that, there was an intense frustration around just being able to figure out what happened and who was involved.
And David, what were you able to learn about Ochoa and Gutierrez? When did they join the federal agency? And have there been any other incidents in their past of excessive use of force, or allegations at least?
It's pretty hard to pin down details on agents. They are instructed to really scrub themselves from the internet. But we do know that both men hail from South Texas. Jesus Ochoa, age 43, joined in 2018. I'm told by his ex-wife in an interview that he had really aspired to be an agent for quite some time. And in that region, it's a pretty good job. A lot of folks, very well-meaning. It's got great benefits. That's not uncommon. That didn't surprise me. In terms of Raymundo Gutierrez, he is age 35. He joined a little bit earlier, 2014. So we know that they're not part of this most recent recruiting push with all of the money being funneled into Homeland Security. They have had some experience, though certainly, CBP's, mission, before recent months was not to go into American cities and conduct these sort of sweeps.
And at a White House press briefing last month, Vice President J.D. Vance suggested ICE agents have absolute immunity. I'm wondering your response to this allegation by the Vice President.
Well, I don't know about absolute immunity. There is a concept called qualified immunity. And I wrote a story back in April towards the beginning of the Trump administration. One of the first things the administration did was wipe out the levers of accountability within Homeland Security, including the Civil Rights and Civil Liberties Office, which really would follow up on these claims, on allegations of wrongdoing internally. Certainly would have looked at something like this and something like Pretti's death and referred that to DOJ for potential criminal investigation. And that headline was a quote from one of the former lawyers in that office who had said, they don't care about civil rights. And that story essentially portended that in that environment, it's really going to come down to whether or not a federal prosecutor is willing to prosecute a federal agent because they do have qualified immunity. If they are doing, if these allegations transpire in the course of them following orders under the executive branch, doing their jobs, there's an argument that, they have immunity and it's going to be a federal matter. So it is a really tricky area in terms of seeking accountability.
I was just struck in your piece, David. A longtime resident of Rio Grande Valley, Jesus Ochoa, had for years dreamed of working for the Border Patrol. According to his ex-wife, they split in 2021. He'd become a gun enthusiast with about 25 rifles, pistols, and shotguns, Angelica Ochoa said. And I was wondering if you can comment on that, and also the previous piece you co-wrote, headlined "Unfettered and Unaccountable: How Trump is Building a Violent, Shadowy Federal Police Force."
Sure. I don't know what else I could really add to his ex-wife's statements. They did have an acrimonious divorce. She did say to me that his demeanor really changed when he did become a Border Patrol agent, and they drifted apart for reasons, unknown. In terms of the most recent article you mentioned, I did do, I worked on a story really looking at, beginning in LA and certainly in Chicago and now Minneapolis, we see a rampant use of these, so-called less lethals, pepper balls and rubber bullets and pepper spray and that sort of thing. And their use has really been flagrantly in violation of the agency's own rules and policing norms. For instance, firing at people's heads and crotches, throwing tear gas into cars where there are children, using these launchers in ways that, they're meant to deploy a weapon into a crowd, but they're hitting people and causing serious injury. And that story actually is relevant in what we saw with Alex Pretti's death. That scene really escalates when a Border Patrol officer fires pepper spray at his face, causing disorientation, and several officers pile on. It'd be hard to imagine anyone in that scene really had their bearings of what's going on as those noxious chemicals are floating around.
Thanks for watching Democracy Now! On YouTube. Subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications to make sure you never miss a video. And for more of our audience-supported journalism, go to democracynow.org, where you can download our news app, sign up for our newsletter, subscribe to the daily podcast, and so much more.